An empty space stands still and bare. The sound of footsteps then fills the air. Look up, look up, look up and see. What color will it be?
Yellow!
What is yellow?
My balloon is yellow.
What else is yellow? The sun looks yellow. A banana is yellow
Beep, 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 beep.
and makes a good phone.
Hello. How are you?
Oh, hi. Good, thanks. Sunflowers are yellow too. Can you spot anything that's yellow? A sharp yellow beak. Underwater yellow. Protective yellow. A big yellow truck. Soft yellow butter. Cooking corn on the cob. Yellow lemons. Smiley slices of melon. Lots of things are yellow, aren't they? You can explore colour through art.
What colour is this?
Yellow!
Amazing.
Thick yellow paint, perfect for making patterns.
Put your paintbrush in there, give it a stir. That's it. Now put it on your page and take it for a walk all the way around the page. That's it. Get yours in there then, into the paint. That's it. Splosh it down. That's it. Out again. And then straight onto your page. And let's see how many different patterns we can make. Excellent. Look at all those different shades. Now, who's got painty hands? Haha, show me your painty hands.
You can make art with lots of different materials, like crepe paper and tissue paper.
Okay, let's start adding those flowers to the middle to make our sun. And I'll start doing some of the sun rays. That's it. Let's pile it up into the middle.
A piece of art that looks like the yellow sun. When the sun shines in spring, flowers appear, like yellow daffodils. Yellow is the color of new beginnings, and the color of springtime. Yellow is a warm, sunny color
Yellow makes me feel happy.
that makes us feel good. Float beneath the waves, yellow. Grow up to the sun, yellow. Yellow beak on a serious face. A yellow hat to keep you safe. A little yellow truck for play. A big yellow truck for a working day. Yellow dragons with dancing shoes. Yellow trumpets play daffodil tunes. Spring chicks, yellow and new. Yellow spotty egg. Yellow dippy egg. Mind the yellow drippy egg. Through fields of yellow, run and run. Warm yellow glow from a shining sun.